Welcome back to the channel. Before we start the lesson, I want to inform you about the book that I will publish soon. It will contain information as to how a teacher can be effective in the workplace, what are the things to do, and what are some of the things not to do. It will also comprise information of how a teacher can purchase a home within the first 3 to 4 years of their working career and how they can set the stage to be financially free. Alright, so let's get into the lesson. So today's lesson is soil. Alright, let us look at a brief definition of what is the soil. Alright, the soil is the uppermost layer of the earth's surface that supports plant growth. What this is saying is that not all part of the earth or the land is the soil. It's just that part where the roots of the plants are in, etc. Now, going below the soil, you will come across rocks. So the deeper you go, moving from the soil, you will go down to rocks. Now, those rocks are what form most of the soil. Alright, so let's look at the objectives of the lesson. The subtopics to be covered are 1. Weathering. 2. Weathering agents. 3. Components of the soil. And 4. Functions of the soil. What is weathering? Weathering is the breaking down of rocks to form soil. These rocks are referred to as parent material bedrock. These rocks are unbroken. Note briefly, different types of soil particles are formed from specific type of rocks. Alright, so in short, weathering is the breaking down of rocks to form soil, and those rocks are normally unbroken. Alright, so as was mentioned, different rocks formed different soils. So a type of rocks and soil particles form. So in this diagram here, in this column, we'll have rocks on this column. Here, the diagrams of the rocks are in this column, and the soil particles formed are in this column. Alright, so let's start here. So here you have the sandstone, and this is how the sandstone will look. The soil that is formed from this rock is sand. Alright, now the second type of rock is the mudstone. And here, or we should say the second example of rock is the mudstone. And here is the diagram of how the mudstone looks. And the mudstone forms silt soil. And here we have shale, the third type of rock, or example of rock. And it forms clay. Now, one main difference between the shale and the mudstone is that the shale, it has lines in it that runs parallel. Alright, so that's one way of knowing your shale. Alright, so the type of rocks will basically determine the type of soil form. And of course, we have different types of rocks. Alright, so let us look at these key points. Key point number 1, sandstone, mudstone, and shale are sedimentary rocks. Number 2, sedimentary rocks are formed by compaction and cementation. Number 3, metamorphic rocks and igneous rocks are formed under heat and pressure. For example, marble, which is a metamorphic, and basalt, which is an igneous rock. Alright, so as you can see, we have 3 main types of rocks: the sedimentary rocks, the metamorphic rocks, and the igneous rocks. So the basic soil particles, sand, silt, and clay, they are sedimentary rocks. Weathering agents. So the next topic is weathering agents. Weathering agents are the things that break down the rocks to soil. Alright, so there are things that break down the rocks to soil. For example, water, wind, temperature, animal, etc. Alright, with these agents, they are categorized or grouped into 3 broad groups. So we'll look at those next. Alright, 3 types of weathering agents. So here is another table. In this column we have the groups, and in this column we have the examples. So the first group is the physical weathering agents. So examples of the physical weathering agents are your water, your wind, your temperature, your ice, your glaciers. Alright, so physical here means that these examples here, these agents, they come in direct contact with the rocks, hitting them, moving them, and breaking them. So the water, for example, just imagine water in a river. When rain falls and that river come down, the water will move the stones and rocks downstream. Thus, they hit on each other and break. The temperature eats the rocks in the day, the particles will expand. When it comes to night, those particles will contract, and so that contract and extension movement of the particles will eventually crack the rocks, which will lead into further breaking down. Alright, so here, glacier, this is like a ice river. So those countries that have snows, when that snow starts to melt, it will come down in a river, and those ice can break off rock particles. Alright, the second group, number two, biological. Alright, so these weathering agents, for example, are your plants and your animals. So what happens is that plant roots grow into the cracks of the rocks, and as those roots get bigger, they break the rock particles. Animals, such as ants, they urinate in those rocks, and the acid from their urine weakens the rock particles, which will eventually break them. Alright, you have kettles. The cattle, they are very heavy, so when they walk on the soil, rock particles will rub against each other and break. Alright, the third group of weathering agents is the chemical weathering agents. So, for example, of those agents are your carbon dioxide and your oxygen. Here, what a reaction is when two things react to form a new component, and now that new component will eventually break down the rock particles. So, for example, carbon dioxide in the atmosphere reacts with rainwater, forming carbonic acid, and that carbonic acid will basically burn the rock particles and weaken them. Alright, so let's move on. Alright, next subheading is components of the soil. Alright, so the soil is not composed of only the rock particles, right? There are four major components of the soil. So in other words, sand, silt, and clay is not the only components of the soil. So let's look at the four major components of the soil. So number one, let's start with water. So water is a part of the soil, and that's 25% of the soil. Air is another component of the soil, and that's also 25% of the soil. Now, with air and water, these components, as you can see an arrow here, it means that these components can be greater, they can increase and decrease. I'll explain that further. Alright, the third component here is the organic component, which is 5% of the soil, which is a very small percentage of the soil. Alright, and here we have the inorganic component, which is majority of the soil, the single most largest part of the soil, or single most largest component of the soil, and that's 45%. Now, as you can see here, we have examples such as stone, sand, silt, gravel. Alright, so the inorganic component of soil is basically formed from rocks. So you have stones, gravel, sand, silt, clay, nutrients. They all come from the soil, and they make up the inorganic component of the soil. Alright, and the organic, that component is made up of plants and animals. Alright, so as we go along, we get into the discussion. Alright, so component of soil, we're going to get into further detail or more detail with air. Alright, so as I said, air is 25% of the soil, that's quarter of the soil. Alright, the air of the soil is found within the pores of the soil. Now, keyword here, pore, is explained here in this sentence. The pores of the soil are the spaces between the soil particles. Alright, so for example, of soil particle, as we said, the sand. So the sand is a soil particle, the silt is a soil particle, and the clay is a soil particle. So the spaces in between those solid particles, those are referred to as air pores. Alright, let's continue. The air in the soil consists of various gases such as oxygen. Oxygen is necessary for the respiration of plant roots. Alright, so the air in the soil, the most important component that is required from the air is oxygen. So the plant roots, they use oxygen, and they use oxygen for respiration. Alright, so plants used both carbon dioxide and oxygen, alright? It's just that plants use carbon dioxide to make food by the process of photosynthesis, but they use oxygen for the process of respiration to release energy from that food. Alright, so very important point here. Alright, respiration. Respiration is the release of energy from food. The plant roots need energy to absorb water and minerals and for growth. Alright, so all living things require energy. And the oxygen which is found in the cells of the plants and cells of animals too, but we are talking about plants today, they are used to oxidize the food to give off energy. And that energy is used to sustain life and daily activities of the plants. Alright, the second component is water. The water is 25% as you can see. Now, water is also found in the pore spaces of the soil. It competes with air for space. Very important to know that both the air and the water, they are found in the pore spaces of the soil, which are in between the particles of the soil. So they occupy the same place, and that is why if one increases, the other will decrease, and vice versa. All right. Now, some functions of water are: number one, water dissolves plant nutrients and make absorption by roots possible. Number two, water is a raw material in photosynthesis. Number three, water is used for hydrolyzing food nutrients. Alright, key points. If the percentage of air in the soil increases, then automatically the percentage of water decreases and vice versa. Alright, so if air increase, water will decrease, and if water increase, air will decrease and vice versa. Alright, so and that is because both of them are found within the same place of the soil. They are both found in the pore space of the soil, and that is why. Alright, so let's continue. This is so because air and water occupies the pore spaces in the soil. Both air and water adds up to 50% of the soil. Very, very important. Alright, for example, number one, on a rainy day, the percentage of soil water went up to 36% and air went down to 14%. Alright, so both of them should add up to 50. So 36 and 14, that's 50. Alright, let's look at example number 2. It rains for 2 days and the soil water went up to 40%. Then air will go down to 10%. So both of them should add up to 50. Number 3, let's look at example number 3. During the drought last summer, water decreased 12% and air increased to 38%. So again, both of them should add up to 50%. Alright, so if one increase, the other will decrease. So what you should get from this part of the lesson is that if rain falls, that will normally cause soil water to increase. And if there's a drought, that will normally cause soil water to decrease and air to increase. Very important. So on a rainy day, water will increase and air decrease, but in droughts, air will increase and water decrease. Alright, let's move to the third component of the soil, organic component, and that's 5% of the soil. So that's really a tiny amount, but yet a very effective component. Alright, this is the part of the soil that is living or was once living. For example, 1. Live plants and animals, for example, ants, worms, etc. Number 2. Dead plants and animal remains, for example, paper, sawdust, board, dry sticks, etc. Alright, so whether those plants and animals are alive or not, they are still considered to be organic. Alright, so note briefly, humus is organic material that is in its state of final decomposition. So when plants and animals are dead, they will normally go through a stage of decomposition whereby microbes will feed on those materials. Now, when those organic materials are fully broken down until to a state where it cannot be broken down any further and to a state where those nutrients can be released, then it is referred to as humus. So in other words, humus is dead organic matter, not the life part. Alright, so summary. The organic component of soil involve those things that are alive, and when they are dead, they are still considered as the organic component of the soil. Alright, functions of the organic component of the soil. Number one, provides nutrients for plants. Number two, provide home habitat for microorganisms. Number three, it binds soil particles and improves soil structure. Alright, so habitat is a natural home and it improves soil structure. So a soil structure is when soil particles come together. What will happen is that you want a good structure of a soil, a structure that will not drain too much water or hold too much water. You want your soil to be in the right proportion to hold enough water, to drain enough water, have enough nutrients. And so the organic component of soil will do that. It will keep that balance. Alright. And the fourth component of the soil, inorganic component or the mineral component, and that's 45% of the soil. And as I said before, it is the single most largest component of the soil. Alright, the first point about it, the definition. This component involves particles that are non-living or was never alive. Example, rocks, nutrients, and the type of soil particles such as sand, silt, and clay. Also rocks, gravel, stones. Alright, so basically this component of the soil, it is formed from rocks. Alright, the function provides anchorage and nutrients. So you could break that down into two functions. Provide anchorage of plants and two, provide nutrients. So normally the rocks, they are packed with nutrients that the plants need, but the nutrients are released from those rocks when they are broken down to the soil. Alright. Alright, so let's get to the functions or importance of the soil. Alright, number one, it provides nutrients and water to plants. Number two, it facilitates infrastructure, for example, buildings, roads, irrigation systems, etc. Number three, it neutralized harmful chemicals such as herbicides and insecticides. Number four, it is a habitat for soil organisms, example, earthworms, ants, etc. So the summary of the lesson is that rocks form soil, and the soil is very important to agriculture, right? And the soil is the uppermost layer of the earth's crust. It is where your buildings are placed. It's where the roads are placed. It is where the plant roots grow, and different types of rocks, they form different types of soil. We are now to the end of the lesson, and I hope you learn a lot. And also remember, this lesson has all the notes you need, so you can take your time and pause your videos and write off your notes. I'll always provide videos like this where you get explanations, audio, and also you can take your notes. It is on the channel, so you can access these notes anytime you have service. So get automatic updates of videos by clicking the subscribe button and the bell icon. So it's very important, guys, to subscribe to the channel, and not only but hit the bell icon. Very important is that the bell icon has three options. Ensure you select the all option. So you'll see different options when you hit the bell. Select the bell and then select the all option. In this way, if you do not select all option, you will not receive all videos. So remember, you want to receive all the videos because I'll be posting videos right through the year, and all the videos you need for your classes from 7 to 11, from grade 7 students to grade 11. Alright, so remember to tell a friend or two about the channel. Thank you for watching. See you in the next